About damn time we get something going our way for one time. Really, really poor performance. Thanks for joining me, boys. Something to get excited about at least. Well, maybe not so, but at least a win that we can all celebrate today. I have to be honest, 5 minutes prior to the end of the game, I thought, how am I going to do another reaction? How am I going to do another review? And to be honest with you, I'm getting sick and tired of it. Big 3 points in the end. Doesn't matter how we got it. We will go through that, obviously. International break. We probably need this. We need to regroup. We really need to push on from this. Oh man, it must be some buzz in Old Trafford. I know Keane's there today. It must be some buzz. But McTominay, the saviour, 2 great goals. Stu, Freddie, Marcus, thank you so much, boys, for joining me. Really, really appreciate it. At least we got something great to talk about today. Stu, talk to me, my good man.
Yeah, interesting, really. I doubt half the fans saw the last 2 goals or our 2 goals because they probably
I can imagine
disappeared, didn't they, with about 10 minutes to go. My lad was there actually, and he's just texted me, said it went off when McTominay scored his second goal. What's interesting for me, and you guys will know this, Freddie and Marcus, because I talk about it all the time. I talk about players that want to play the game, that absolutely enjoy lacing up the boots, crossing the white line and playing football. And you get that when you play Brentford, you get that when you play Brighton, you get that when you play opposition that other fans deem to be mediocre. And the thing is, if you can play football with a spirit and a determination and not even a game plan as such, but a desire to, if you lose the ball, get back and get the tackle back in, or at least to try and disrupt the opposition, then it takes you so far in football, rather than fans are going about coaching all the time, who are going about formations all the time, are going about this, are going about that. The actual fundamentals and basics of football are really what's in here. This is the one that absolutely drives you to perform at your very best. And if you were to look at our starting 11, we have this issue. We're so lopsided at the moment because we have this issue with Amrabat to play left back or left-sided, and he drifts in so much. And people say, "Well, it's just the way an inverted fullback plays." It isn't. It's his natural instinct to drift into the middle of the park and try and become effective. And I think from Ten Hag's point of view, I think you're right, Mark. I think the international break, we can maybe get 1 or 2 left backs back, such as regularly on, and then at least it will allow Amrabat to play his normal game. But
we're kind of training now as well.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, we're kind of weak mentally. A lot of these players are weak mentally. Whereas when you come up, as I said, against a team like Brentford, who've got a spirit about them and a want and a will to win, it's so much easier to play in that team, because you kind of know telepathically where players are going to be at any given time. Whereas with Manchester United at the moment, you don't, because I like Amrabat, I like what he brings, but if I'm Casemiro or I'm Bruno, I'm just looking along to the side, oh fucking hell, Amrabat's here, or he's over with Dallo, shaking Dallo's hand, or he's. I ain't got a problem with it. I don't have an issue with it. But when you're playing against
just on that topic quickly, actually, I thought Amrabat, he probably wasn't at the races today and wasn't incredible at all. But I think he was far better than Casemiro and Bruno. So I know you're talking about the sort of spaces and the amount between them and whatever else. But I think he needs to be given a little bit of plaudit, obviously, because he was far better than the best player in the midfield.
I'm not underpopping. I know not. What he's doing is he's migrating to his natural position, but he's also looking in and around. And you are right, Mark. He's trying to fill gaps that other players should be doing. But when you're Rashford, or you're, as I say, Casemiro, and you're looking over your shoulder, or even you're Maguire looking left, and you've got this big hole there, it does become a problem. And when you're playing against a team that is formatted quite nicely, they're almost fermented beautifully as an organisation. They stick together like gel. Brentford do. It becomes very, very difficult because they can see the overload quickly and exploit it. So, look, we got lucky today, and nobody can tell me we didn't, because if Brentford were on their go, if Ivan Toney was playing, we could have found ourselves 4 down before we actually come back into it. But all plaudits go to McTominay. The kids had a rough time. I've been in a rough time. I've been critical of him. I thought his first goal was wonderfully taken.
Brilliant.
I mean,
brilliant goal.
Fair play to the kid. He's come on and scored 3 goals, but potentially, really, because he was involved obviously with the Martial.
He was
own goal. So he's almost scored 3 goals. So really pleased with McTominay. This is what football's about. This is why we love football. But I'm not going to get excited. I'm not going to be screaming at the top of my lungs. And this is just a win. We've got to chalk it off, and we move on. But we got the 3 points.
Yeah, and listen, I want to be a little bit happier as well, and I think you've sort of summed that up well for me, to be honest. We were very lucky. Great to get 3 points, but ultimately we should have seen a much better performance all round. John in the comments here. A great ending and well done to McTominay. I do think it paves over the cracks, but what a comeback, snatching a win from the jaws of defeat.
It's Fergie days, isn't it? You get your Beckham Netflix documentary gets launched this week. We have the sad and awful passing of Sir Alex's wife.
Yeah.
And this will please him. This will please fans like us who have seen this before. But we didn't. The difference is we really didn't push it as we should have done early on. And I think, anyway, we got the win.
Yeah. For those of you,
I'll smile a little bit.
Yeah, no, you're good, mate. For those of you who haven't seen it, there's a clip of Eric Ten Hag and his reaction. I tell you what, it meant a huge amount to him. And listen up. He's got his negatives. We can go in on him. I feel like decisions today probably weren't the best, but it means a lot to him, and obviously I'm fully behind him, and I hope that it really does kick on for him now. Marcus, Freddie, thank you so much for joining as well. Marcus, over to you first, but it's been a couple of weeks. Great to have you back, my man. How are you feeling after that?
Yeah, I mean, when McTominay scored, I got off my chair and I was so happy. And then just a few seconds later, I was like, well, anyways, bad performance. Because it's like, it's so hard. You get happy, obviously, while you're watching the game because you're emotionally invested. You can't believe what you've just seen. But as soon as the adrenaline calms down, it puts things into perspective and you think to yourself, man, we got away with one there. And you almost start to wonder, like, at what point does Erik ten Hag start making some brave decisions? Because I thought today's team sheet was interesting, to say the least. But taking off Rashford, and I believe it was Mount who came off, it's like, it's great that you've taken those players off, and it's great that you've tried to make proactive subs, but some of them I feel shouldn't be starting every single week. Some of them should have been dropped. There's a case to say that a few players in this team shouldn't be starting today. And I just feel like he's not necessarily 100% to blame for the situation, obviously, because the players have got to take responsibility as well. But as a manager, at some point, you've got to be brave. And even if the alternative doesn't work, at least you've tried to change something. And I feel like he's really taken a risk today, sticking with some of these players. And a lot of them let him down today, even though the scoreline is a bit deceiving. A lot of them let him down, man. So, it's a bit of a mixed bag today. And we've come to the point with Manchester United. I mean, you guys said Fergie time there. The difference with Fergie is at least we knew it would lead to something more. You almost start to feel, even when Manchester United do win, it's like, oh, well, what's going to happen next week? Will we actually get better? Will we continue? And I don't want to feel that way, but I do. There was a lot of moments today where I thought, man, like why am I so emotionally invested in this club? Like, what am I doing this for? Because these players don't care.
It's very difficult, isn't it? It's such a, as you say, an emotional roller coaster, and we are invested, and the highs and the lows and all of it. It was almost fitting today, a Fergie time winner, wasn't it? And a great little comment here as well. I think that win is for Kathy. I think Kathy ensured we won today. I do believe in fate, but the best way to win a game, that Ten Hag reaction to the winner reminded me of Ollie when Ronaldo got that winner against Villarreal. I was there when he got that. Hopefully not a similar fate though. And Vicky as well, as always. Loads of you in the comments, good guys. Really, really appreciate it. Get your comments in. Tell us how you feel. Get liking, get subscribing.
McTominay has bought him time. McTominay has bought him time. And listen, I don't know what it's like to be a manager in real life, but, and this might sound silly to some people, but if you're a football manager player, the feeling when you're going to get sacked and the AI is pushing to sack you, And somehow, just out of nowhere, because you didn't change the tactics, you just got desperate. You put 2 strikers up front, and you're just hoping for the best. And you get that highlight at the end of the game, and your team somehow scores. And from then things kick on. I think it's obviously the stakes are more severe in real life when there's more at play. I think Ten Hag realizes that he's McTominay's just bought him time because the international break couldn't have come at a better time for him. And if he had lost today, man, like. I don't see how he would have survived.
I was thinking this earlier. I would have been seriously worried about the conversation if we had. Honestly, yeah. I think that after the game midweek, losing it in such awful fashion, and then obviously coming to Brentford, they're not in the great form themselves, and really it is 3 points that we have to go for. We got. Luckily, but I would have been seriously concerned about the conversation.
Just before Freddie jumps in, sorry, I just want to touch on what Marcus has said, and this is the whole essence of what I talk about with regards to football. Marcus is absolutely right. You're a football manager, you're on the sidelines, and you're looking at it, you're looking for somebody to do something, to spark something. Now, you tell me what is tactical about that? Nothing. What can you work? What can you coach about that? Nothing. You can't. This is the evolution of football. This is what happens when you're on that pitch, and each and every player should be doing exactly the same, looking for somebody to give them that boost. And do you know what? It should be you. You shouldn't be looking at anyone else for that boost. It should be you. You're on that pitch. You're the one that should be giving that boost. And that's what Scott McTominay's done today. And Vicky asked the question about who wanted him sold. Hands up, I did. But look, the guys pulled his shirt on a little bit like Maguire today. I thought Maguire was outstanding today. I really did. Although people will blame him.
I agree. I said this throughout the first half. I thought he was the most solid defender we had, and the mistakes prior to the goal, we can blame.
They'll blame him, won't they?
They'll blame Maguire, but it wasn't anything to do with Maguire. Lindelof was poor, Casemiro was poor, and Arna should have saved the shot.
Anyway, sorry, Freddie. I just want to make that point that Marcus was right. So.
Yeah, just very quickly, Freddie, I'm really sorry. Loads of you with us. Please make sure you're liking, subscribing. Freddie, over to you, my man.
It still hasn't really hit me, I'll be honest with you. I know we've come on straight after. The VAR, this is the problem with VAR, isn't it? Because I don't know about you guys, but I was just on standby and I just had a feeling, knowing our luck, this is going to be offside. If not the second one, certainly the first one. But look, brilliant. Brilliant by McTominay. We were very lucky, I think, at the end of the day. I did not see where goals were going to come from at all. I think the Garnacho sub equally had as big an impact as McTominay coming on, evidently. I think Garnacho looked very solid, very creative.
He did look very good, yeah.
We've lacked that sort of wide style of play in recent games, and I think that's what Ten Hag needs to revert to. But it's, again, individual mistakes leading to goals. 3 mistakes in the lead up to their goal, and we were very lucky. There's not much more to say. It was they didn't offer anything else apart from their goal, in my opinion. But equally, we didn't offer much going forward. I think Ethan Pinnock was man of the match today. I think
he was
just
phenomenal.
Couldn't get past him. So I think kudos to him. But still a lot of question marks. We go into an international break now. Hopefully we get a few injuries back. We've got a lot to do on the training pitch. So hopefully this doesn't paper over the cracks and the hard work starts now. And hopefully this is a turning point in our season and we can push on and go on a little bit of a run as we should.
Yeah, the hard work does start now. I think that's a really, really good point. It has to. Otherwise, we're in for a bit of a torrid time, aren't we? Just on what you said about Garnacho, he was so instrumental, particularly in the build-up to that goal. And his work rate today, something that we didn't see from a lot of players over the course of the game till he came on, was exceptional. We've talked about him before, whether he should start. I really feel like he needs that opportunity again. I appreciate he's more of an impact player of what we've seen so far, but I really feel he should. He was brilliant today. Genuine in the comments here. Maguire was excellent. We were just talking about him. He was very good today, and I think he really took his opportunity today. Johnny Evans was okay as well. Lindelof, I think, looked a little bit frail on that left-hand side. Dallo as well. And, of course, Casemiro, who came off anyway. He really needs to step up. Talking about Rashford today, I thought he was Not our most dangerous player. I thought Hojlund was very, very good, very strong at points, just really couldn't create anything. But Rashford sort of had a couple of opportunities and looked a little bit better there. I was surprised that he did come off. But with that in mind, Stu, after the international break, obviously a few players probably coming back. Would you maybe give Alejandro his start next time, or would you stick with Rashford still?
Yeah, it's a bit of a tricky one, really, because Rashford isn't playing good football at the moment, but he does offer a balance and a better balance of what Garnacho offers. Although they're very, very similar in what they do in their attacking play, they're both quite selfish at times, and both still at this point, even in Rashford's career and also Garnacho's career, have issues looking at the bigger picture. And football's all about the wider picture. It isn't about how self-involved you are in a game all the time. It's all about the bigger picture. And the wider picture for somebody like Rasmus Hojlund is, and he's proven this, he proved it against Galatasaray. When the chances fall to him, he will put them away. I thought his finishing against Galatasaray was outstanding, and Rashford delivered a wonderful cross, and Hojlund direct. People talk about that header, and people say, well, it was a straightforward header. It wasn't. The grace on the ball to be able to direct and keep that down was phenomenal. His second goal, he had a goal disallowed as well. Hojlund did, and his ability to be able to manoeuvre himself in the box out of tight spaces and put the ball in the back of net is what we've been crying out for years. But it's a waste of time if you don't utilise that. And Rashford's got to understand this. And he's got to realise at 27 years old, you can't teach him. No, this is the problem. People talk about coaching all the time. You can't teach him. It's all about bad habits. Marcus talks about this a lot, and so does Freddie. And they're both right. It's all about habits and standards. Football is standards. And if you haven't got standards in yourself, then your ability diminishes. And unfortunately, that's what's happening with him at the moment. His ability is diminishing. We all know it's there because we've seen it, but we've seen it. He'll do 20, 30 goals a season. Then he'll regress. He'll do 20, 30 goals. And he's regressing again this season. We need him to kind of grow up a little bit. There are certain players in our squad that have got to grow up. Sancho being one, and we need him out there. This current predicament we're in, we need the likes of Sancho out there. Anthony is just coming, filling his way back in for his problems. But Garnacho, if he wants to start, has got to grow up quicker than most. And therein lies the issue. And I feel a bit sorry for Garnacho because he is an impact player and he does make a huge difference when he comes on. But when he starts, he just completely reverts back to type. And that is, I'm going to get the ball. I'm playing, in Buenos Aires and I'm off with my mates and I'm just getting my head down and away I go. And then we've got a striker of Hojlund's quality. And, and I talk about Van Nistelrooy being in there. Hojlund, Van Nistelrooy, Haaland are all the similar type. If you don't pass me the ball, I'm going to knock your head off. And this is going to be the problem. There's going to be this disconnect between Rashford, Hojlund and Garnacho and Hojlund if they don't deliver to the guy. He can't keep making his own stuff. So look, we all know there's a talent in there. Do I advocate taking him out? Well, no, he's paid to play football, so get on with it and play football. That's what you're paid to do. You don't get taken out of your position, Marc, Freddie, Marcus. None of you get taken out of your position if you're not performing. You get to kick up your ass and you've got to perform. And this is where Rashford's got to take himself away. I don't know if he's in England squad. I haven't seen it. I don't pay attention. But if he is, take himself out of the equation and go off on holiday for a week. Just do something different and then come back and focus on football. Focus on what you're supposed to do. But if I'm Hojlund, I'm beginning to get a bit aggrieved myself. Because I'm not finding the space. And Rashford can deliver if he pulls his finger out of his arse. So
I think for me, the problem with Rashford, and some people will disagree with this because there's two schools of thought when it comes to football. Some people will make the argument that, you've got to be confident and Rashford is at his best when he's taking a man on. And I agree, but the problem is Rashford isn't at his best. And when you're not at your best, the best way, in my opinion, to mitigate how bad you're playing is just to simplify your game. Just simplify your game and don't think that you need to be the hero of the situation. And my issue with Rashford is that, he tries to play himself out of bad form. He thinks that, if he can just get a moment, that will fix everything. Like if he can just put a top corner, suddenly the last few months don't matter. And he's that type of player who, once he gets going, he's hard to stop, but then there's no consistency, because every time he drops off, he needs to realize that, stop trying to run past 2 or 3 people, actually just be a little bit more patient, a little bit more indirect, and perhaps you will actually get less criticism and less pressure on your back. So that's the first issue I have with Rashford. The second issue is exactly what Stu said there. The alternative isn't that great. I've seen a lot of people get on Rashford's back over the last few weeks, and Ten Hag's back, for picking Marcus Rashford. And whilst I definitely agree that it's important to send statements and drop people, at the end of the day, sending a statement doesn't help us beat Brentford. You know what I mean? Like, I think we're past that point of, I'm just going to drop Rashford to show that I'm Mr. Ruthless. It doesn't do anything, because the alternative is Garnacho. He's a kid. You cannot rely on a kid in an unstable environment who has barely proven himself at the top level to take on a team like Brentford that has beaten teams that are far better than us and taken points off teams that are far better than us. They've scored more goals than us in the league. They've conceded less goals than us in the league. And yes, they haven't won at Old Trafford in God knows how long, I think since 1937, but that's irrelevant, because at the end of the day, we're living in the present. So for me, I'm caught between a rock and a hard place, because I don't dismiss fans who say he should be dropped, because I don't necessarily agree. But my question is, who's the alternative, and why are we pretending like this alternative, whether it's Pellistri or Garnacho or Martial on the left or whoever, why are we pretending like that's going to fix the issue? And that's the thing with Rashford. It's kind of hard to figure out where we go from here. But today wasn't nearly as bad as some other days. Just talking about today's performance, actually, there was a few moments where I thought he did all right, to be fair. Still a big problem today, not tracking back. His body language looked a little bit off, just not working hard enough off the ball for me. And he's not focusing on the areas of his game that have nothing to do with, his pace or his talent, or his ability to take a man on. There are a lot of things that Rashford doesn't do that if you look away from his technical ability, ask yourself, what does Rashford bring to the team in terms of his spatial awareness, his positional awareness, his decision-making? How is he making himself useful defensively and offensively? I question why he's not focusing on that aspect of his game and saying, you know what, I'm not scoring goals at the moment, I'm not getting assists, but clearly the gaffer trusts me, so I'm going to at least do the minimum stuff, the bare minimum that has nothing to do with dribbling past 8 players, the bare minimum that every other player on the pitch should be able to do. I'm going to focus on that, and I'm going to make sure that I do not get caught not covering a single blade of grass. And I think that's where there's a bit of an issue with Rashford. The mentality for me is the biggest thing.
Yeah.
It's I think it's very complicated with Rashford. I think he's a victim of a poor attack in recent years. He has felt that he's had to do everything on his own, certainly last season. And I think it's just going to take time for him to adapt. Now we actually have a striker which can ease the burden off of him. He needs to effectively show some maturity. And at the moment, he's not showing that. And there's no consistency to his game whatsoever. And the problem is the left, he's a senior player at the club at the moment. He's on the highest contract. If what you read is to be believed, he needs to show consistency, and he needs to offer something, as was said, when he's not scoring or not getting any assists, he needs to offer something else. And at the moment, he's not doing that. If you compare him to a Mo Salah or Saka, they do. They're consistent, and they don't get goals all the time. They usually do, but when they don't,
they work hard.
They work hard off the ball. They're bringing in their play. They're creating space for other players. He's not doing that. And it, Garnacho, in my opinion, he had his opportunity at the beginning of the season to start games. He didn't take it. So he needs. I said it last week. He's in that position at the moment whereby he's too good to be a sub, but he hasn't taken his opportunity when he started. So you're right. He needs to grow up quickly, because if he wants to be the first team left wide attacker at Manchester United, now is the opportunity. It doesn't come around very often, but he's got an opportunity. He needs to show that he can grasp that and perform for 90 minutes. Because, again, I use Saka as an example. He came into the squad when he was 19, 20, and he's gone on a 3-year streak without missing a game, and he's arguably Arsenal's best player. And you've got the benchmark for these top players are are their peers. You know, if we want to compete with other teams in the league, City, Arsenal, Liverpool, you have to compare to the peers and other players in similar positions, output wise and performance wise. And currently, Marcus isn't there. I think it's no coincidence he's been dropped from the England squad, or he might be in the squad, but he's certainly not in the first 11, or even possibly the second player in that position. But there's a player in there. We all know there's a player in there. So you're absolutely right. He's a confidence player. Hopefully, like last season, he came into form after the World Cup. So it's just a matter of time. Once he gets a few goals, a few assists, he'll bounce on and play himself into form. But I think he has to play out his way into form. And I don't think Ten Hag will drop him as a result.
Yeah, absolutely spot on. Great points, everybody. Loads of you in still, as I said earlier. Don't mean to bore you, but get in, get like, and get subscribing. Tell us how you feel. Tell us who you felt deserves man of the match. Any frustrations with particular players, bring it in and we will discuss. Scott McTominay has come out and done a post-match interview. He said, I've been brought up at this club ever since I was 5 years old. I know the feeling of never being allowed to give up better than anyone. When you are not doing well at this football club, everyone is against you. It feels like we are in our own bubble with the rest of the world saying negative things. He goes on to say, that was probably one of my favourite moments ever on a football pitch. Fair play to him.
That's bad. How old is he? 20. That's terrible.
I would argue that the Man City moment was better, actually.
Yeah, so would I.
think his goal against
City, I was about to say, yeah.
Let's
talk about Casemiro. Had one good game in the Carabao Cup. Hasn't really kicked on, which we thought might be the turning point for him. Been poor for the rest of the season. Really needs to step up, and obviously was taken off quite early today. Stu, what did you make of his performance? And obviously he needs to start performing better, doesn't he?
Well, there'll be no bigger critic of Casemiro than Casemiro, you know, and that's what you get with that type of player, that type of mentality. His problem is, and I hate to say it because we're not really giving Mason a fair crack of the whip, but it's Mason Mount. Casemiro does not know what to do with him. He doesn't know how to play with him. He doesn't understand where Mount operates. Whereas when Eriksen comes on, there is this synergy between them, not just because of last year, but there's this calmness about Eriksen and there's availability of Eriksen always to want the football and that. Now, herein lies another issue, very similar Mason Mount to Marcus Rashford. We know there's a footballer in there because we've seen a footballer at Chelsea in the past, not necessarily last season because he had injuries and he's not really been able to develop this season because I think he's kind of been thrown in there by Erik Ten Hag with no real instructions on how to work alongside Casemiro. I'm not talking about a pivot, double pivot, single pivot, quadruple pivot, whatever you want to call it. I'm not talking about that nonsense. I'm talking about common sense football. And this is the issue. When Brighton took us apart with McAllister and Basuma. No, Basuma, it wasn't Basuma. What's his name? Help me out, lads. What's his name?
Casado, maybe? I don't know.
Casado, classic Casado. Yeah, they worked in tandem, but not side by side. They worked in tandem with about a 5 to 10 yard area. And that enabled them to cover each other quite nicely, which isn't happening with Mount, with Casemiro at the moment. So Casemiro is almost being stifled because he's not got that ability to do what he used to do, and that's put his head on a swivel, move 5 to 10 yards, look about what's going on. And Amrabat doesn't help him when Amrabat's walking around the pitch all the time because he's then got to cover maybe 2 positions rather than the one. So he isn't playing well. Okay, there's no 2 ways about it. But the good thing about being a CDM, you can kind of play your way into a game of football quite easily. Although it's a demanding position, it's not a very taxing position in terms of your football brain. It's more of an ability position because you need to have that ability to be able to close down, tackle, distribute the ball, and get in on the end of crosses, etc. I would suggest that when Amrabat comes in, you'll see Casemiro as more of an 8, and I you know, when Amrabat can play a 6 properly, you'll see Casemiro more as an 8, and then you've got to decide what you do with Mason Mount. I mean, what, you know, It's one of those, unfortunately. Years and years ago, Juan Saber Veron, an outstanding, talented football, had a very similar problem to what Mount is having at this point in time, because he had Paul Scholes.
Just couldn't carve out a position for himself.
Yeah. So Mount's got to decide what he wants from himself as a footballer. And it doesn't get done enough. It doesn't get, I'm number 8. I can only play as an 8, or I can only play as a 10. Well, good quality players can be competent in a variety of positions. And this is where Mount has got to really look at his game and decide, if I want to be a first team starting 11 at Manchester United, I've got to vary my game up, because he's not quite doing that yet. But again, look, here's the problem with Mount. He's so industrious, isn't he? He gets up and down the pitch. He gives us bags and bags of energy, but we're not balanced with him. Casemiro isn't balanced in his brain. I think when Casemiro crosses the line and Mason Mount's behind him, his balance is gone. Everything's not right in his mind, and that's his issue. So he was the fall guy today. He made that issue. Obviously, there was an issue with the first goal, him, Lindelof and Onana. There was an issue for the first goal, but there's a player in Casemiro. I'm not particularly worried at all. I just think they've got to find a way of, if you're going to play Mount, you've got to incorporate him better.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I would also agree with the fact that I'm not worried about Casemiro at all. I think players like that don't just lose their quality overnight. I think Casemiro's performances are more symbolic of how badly the team is performing. Because again, you can look at a player making a sloppy pass, and the easy assumption is, well, they should just do better. They should just look up and know where to play the ball. But sometimes we underestimate how difficult it is to play at this level, especially in the Premier League. A lot of players rely on their synergy and good habits that they build in training in order to play certain passes. So sometimes you'll see a player play a pass before they've even looked up, because they know their teammate's going to be there, because they have good chemistry. They've been playing for a long time. I feel like when you look at Manchester United's midfield currently, there's so many situations where somebody plays a pass out of habit, and then they look up and they're like, dude, how did you not make that run? There's so many little moments like that that I've noticed with Manchester United. And it's not just Casemiro. I've seen Mount make those mistakes. I've seen Bruno make those mistakes, who we'll get onto later. So I feel like with Casemiro, people are just oversimplifying it. They're just looking at him and saying, well, he just needs to do better. He's missed the Champions League from Real Madrid. He just needs to carry us. And it's not that simple. I think people are being a little bit harsh on Casemiro. But with that said, doesn't justify, his performance today and in recent weeks. So you got to have a bit of balance. But I'm definitely not worried about Casemiro. I think, if anything, one of the saving graces in this horrendous situation that we find ourselves in is at least we've got characters like Casemiro and Varane who have a strong mentality, who know what it's like to win. So hopefully they can find a way of, getting that mentality onto the other players. Even though I doubt that'll happen, but I really wish there was a way they could do it. And so for me, he's the least of my worries.
Here's to hoping. Go on, Freddie.
He's our top scorer this year somehow. I don't think anyone knows what his role is, and he's sort of a consequence of a mixed defence behind him as well. There's been no stability there whatsoever.
Yeah,
I think people think he's like a 4, but he's not. He's effectively like an all-rounded central midfielder. His best, I think, his best performances for us have been in attack. He's very good at his long passing,
even last
arriving
season.
in the box late. Even last season, certainly towards the end. So, he's made a bad mistake today, no doubt about that. But he's just because again, he's another senior player. Possibly rightly so, he is going to have a target on his back, because we know how good he is. Straight away people will just point at your senior players, but I don't think he's an issue going forward. I think Amrabat coming in, playing in midfield, will benefit him hugely. I think Amrabat is more of a deep line playmaker. This was his first match in that position today, so we can't expect too much of him from the off. But I can see us against certain opposition playing them together. Casemiro pushing forward, like Steve mentioned. I've been saying that for a few weeks on here. I think that's the way to go against certain teams. Mason Mount as well. Look, mate, there's a big question mark. I don't think Ten Hag knows our best team, and the problem is no one's been available. So it's difficult. We're trying to shoehorn players in. I mean, first half today we saw Bruno on the right, then it was Mason Mount on the right. You know, the midfield all shuffled, subs came on. It was just a bit of a mess. And until Ten Hag gets a bit of stability on that side, you're not going to see really stability on the pitch. But equally, we need players back now. So it's just been a bit of a mess of a season. External issues, internal as well. But Casemiro is not a problem. He's a fantastic player. I think he's a vital part of the jigsaw of our squad. So yeah, he's needed going forward, and I think he'll form a good partnership with Amrabat once Amrabat gets a few more minutes under his belt as well.
Yeah, absolutely right. As you say, easy to target individual players. You don't lose your ability overnight, and I'm not worried about him either. Let's talk about Harry Maguire. I know this will ruffle, I'm sure, but I thought he was absolutely colossal today. Really, really good. The defensing errors obviously had nothing to do with him. Lindelof, Cass and Onana, we've already highlighted that, but I thought he was extremely good in the right areas, stood his ground well, strong, just all round very, very good, and got an assist as well. I know it's not defensive duty, but let's talk about it. Harry Maguire today, Stu, he gets a lot of bad rap sometimes, probably unfairly, unjustified, has been on the sidelines for a little while now and has come in and really taken his opportunities today, hasn't he?
Yeah, well, unfortunately, it's usually it's put down to a lack of knowledge of not understanding centre-back football and what you need in and around you to enable you to perform at the very, very highest level. Centre-backs aren't always blessed with pace. And then people look at certain players within our squad and think that they're better suited, but not all the time that's the case. Once you build a partnership with somebody, a long-term partnership with somebody, it becomes a lot easier. When Maguire had that with Lindelof a couple of seasons ago, and it enables Maguire to slot back in seamlessly. And he did have a very, very good game today. I'm waiting for people to point the finger at the bad pass into Casemiro, which was the reason we conceded the first goal, but it wasn't. His positional play was decent. His awareness was decent. I think his problem is at the minute, I said this a couple of weeks ago about Onana, he wants to get rid of the Speedos and put the granny pants on because he's come in thinking he's all of this, and you can't do that when you walk through the doors at Manchester United. It's starting to hurt the rest of the team at this point in time. But you've got to persevere with him. We know there's a great goalkeeper in there, just like we knew there was a good defender in Harry Maguire, and in some strange way, I wonder how much the Evans decision was based upon getting something out of Maguire, because obviously they won the Premier League together, and there are merits to having people in and around you as a support group within the club rather than just outside the club. And and Evans is one of those that will come in and almost re-energize Maguire, and I think he has. The other thing you've got to bear in mind about Maguire is he hasn't pulled the shirt on too often over the last 18 months, really. But every time he does, he stood up to the task, and he's prepared to make a mistake, and that's what you need in football. You've got to be prepared to make a mistake and brush off. And he's never shirked that responsibility. People talk about him being captain. Look at Bruno's almost slight decline since he was given the armband, but Bruno's not playing at his optimum level. So there's a lot to be said. You either can take being captain, although it's an irrelevance anyway in today's day and age, or you can't. Maybe Maguire couldn't take it. Maybe Bruno can't take it. I don't know. But look, you've got to put credit where credit's due. And anyone who knows anything about football, I'm talking anything, even a little sliver about the game, will know what type of performance Maguire put in today. So hats off to the guy. Well impressed.
Yeah, Vicky in the comments here, the fact it was 1 goal down and Maguire didn't falter shows good character.
Exactly.
Absolutely right. Yeah, Freddie's helped me out in the background here. Cheers, brother. 90% pass accuracy, 68 touches, 56 out of 62 passes completed, 10 out of the 12 long balls completed, 2 out of 2 area duels, 1. 2 interceptions, 1 assist. A really, really good performance by him. And I'm sure that if we had lost that game, we would have said exactly the same thing because he didn't really put a foot wrong today. Bruno Fernandes come out, said a couple of things. This is Manchester United. Even if you win 10 games in a row and lose one, it's crisis straight away. We are not having the results and points we want to have, but it's good. It's about getting the focus back after the international break. Scott McTominay's come on to say a couple of things as well. I'm just happy to be able to contribute and show people what I can do. And Ten Hag has also said, I have to thank the fans. They were behind us all the game. There's another clip as well. I urge you to go and watch. He's coming off doing this, saying thank you to the fans and saying this is them. Another sort of nice little touch there like that. Right, we're going to come to the player ratings now, guys. Want everyone to get involved. Really good stuff. Thanks, boys, so far. Get everyone in the comments and get involved. So let's start with Onana. We haven't had the opportunity to really talk about him. We've tried to stay positive. So I will give that to you, Marcus.
Yeah, Onana. I've invested a lot in Onana stocks, and my investment's not going well right now.
No, me neither.
Yeah, he was today. I don't think he was as bad as other games, but he was still pretty bad for conceding that goal. I don't think it was completely his fault, by the way, before anybody comes at me, but I still do think that we need to see more from him. We need to see more shot stopping ability. We need our goalkeeper to step up in those big moments, because one thing you cannot deny about David De Gea, whether you wanted him sold or not, whether, whatever your opinions are of him, he saved us a lot of points over the years. And Onana, I feel like he has the ability to do that. We're just not seeing it right now. And I think what Stu said earlier is spot on. I think he's come into this place. And look, I admire the confidence. I admire the bravado. But at the end of the day, maybe I'm a little bit old-fashioned, but I prefer you do your talking on the pitch. I don't care about interviews. I don't care about PR statements. I don't care about, oh, look at me, I want to take credit. My teammates must blame me. Okay, cool. But how does that change what you're doing on the pitch, bro? I don't care. So for me, 5 out of 10 today. Maybe I'm being a little bit generous. I know a lot of people will go a lot lower. I'm going to give him a 5 out of 10. I believe in him. I hope he turns it around. And again, I don't think today was as bad as other days. I thought his distribution was actually okay today as well. Not too many mistakes. It's just that goal that he conceded.
Yeah, just a quick point on the whole revisionism of David De Gea and Onana. It's not needed. There doesn't need to be a comparison. They can both be shit.
Yeah.
Let's not forget the last couple of seasons. He wasn't good. Listen, it's up to Ten Hag to make those decisions. And ultimately, every single one of us needs to get absolutely behind a player. And I believe it will turn it around. And I think there's a very good goalkeeper there. We've said this. I sound like a broken record. There's a reason why he was so pivotal in that Champions League run with Inter Milan. Absolutely phenomenal goalkeeper, and hopefully he can turn it around, as you say. Freddie, Diogo Dalot.
I think 6. I think he was solid. Didn't have too much or noteworthy in attack or defence. I think he's been pretty consistent in recent weeks. Thankfully, he's not got injured, because if he had, we'd be in real trouble. But a few good attacking bursts. He's getting down the byline quite well. You can see it's a tactic that he's trying to cut it back, try and do what other attackers are doing to us, but it's not working that well. And I think he handled sort of the transitional runs of Bremo and Visa quite well today. So I'll give him a 6 because I'd say that's probably the average benchmark score.
Probably going to be a few of those today, I think. Victor Lindelof, Stu.
I don't know. 6. I haven't got anything to say. 6. That's about as far as I go.
It's just Lindelof, isn't it?
Yeah. If I get Harry Maguire, he gets an 8 from me, because I thought he showed a pair of balls today, which nobody else.
Yeah. Lindelof, he's playing left back, isn't he? He's not a left back.
No.
And just fingers crossed he's not injured. He was in the battles a bit today, so he did a job. But yeah, I think 6 is fair.
Yeah, I think that is fair. Harry Maguire then. So I give that to you, Stu, as yours was so short and sweet.
Yeah, it gets an 8 for me, and it's purely based down to understanding what to be a professional footballer is all about. Everything you want when you look at professional football, you get from that, because that guy has had so much thrown at him over the last 18 months, and he stood firm today. And I thought he was, as Vicky said, I thought he grew into the game. So he's my star man today, is Harry Maguire. So he gets an 8 for me, and I think it's a well-deserved 8 as well.
Yeah, very well deserved. I absolutely agree with you. Marcus, Johnny Evans.
I'll give him a 7. Johnny Evans is a player that I think is speaking of the abuse that Harry Maguire gets, Johnny Evans has had nowhere near that level. But I'm just saying, like, when we signed him, I struggled to find one positive tweet about the signing of Johnny Evans. And
he's hardly played as well, and I still see every time, Christ, Johnny Evans is playing. I think he's been great every time he's played.
Exactly. So for what, considering we didn't pay a transfer fee to sign him, if I'm not mistaken, and it was a pretty...
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, considering it was a pretty weird signing, if you judge the signing for what it is, he's actually been great value for us as a fifth or fourth choice defender. So I think just, I don't want to pontificate too much, but just one thing I will say is football fans annoy me, because as much as we can complain about our lack of squad depth, and as much as we can complain about certain players starting, and even I did it today, I was just like, man, I can't believe Evans, Maguire and Lindelof are starting together. But at the same time, we've got to remember that, we do have injuries to both our starting centre-backs. And most teams in the league don't really have great fifth-choice centre-backs. There's a reason why they're fifth-choice centre-backs, right? So when you consider all of that and you put it into context, I think I'm going to give him a 7 out of 10. I thought he was all right today.
Yep, I'll go with that.
Yeah, good points. Interesting little stat for you. So in the Euro 2024 qualifiers, the two top joint scorers, who are those two? Without Googling, any of you?
McTominay.
Oh yeah, he got like 7, didn't he? Yeah, he got 7.
McTominay and Hojlund.
Hojlund, that's right. Yeah.
Nice. Good things there. Right, moving on to the midfield then. Casemiro, Freddie.
5. It wasn't his best game. The mistake was very poor. Onana, and Lindelof will get the critics, but there shouldn't have been a shot in the first place, and that's due to Casemiro. So, yeah, it wasn't his best game today, unfortunately. So I'll give him a 5. But if I could just say on Johnny Evans very quickly, I think he's been an absolutely fantastic signing, hasn't he? He's, I think most people thought he was just brought in to fill in the homegrown quota. He's got more minutes than I think he expected throughout the whole season, considering it's only been a few games. He played very well today. He's got a good relationship with Maguire. They played together at Leicester, and there was one phase whereby I think towards the end, Neil Maupay was all over him as a rash, and you could just tell he's got that intelligence, and he went down, took the sting out of the game, brought us all up the field, and this is exactly what we needed at the time. So brilliant player, brilliant guy, and I think he's a great addition to the squad. So yeah, very happy with him. Casemiro 5, very poor today.
Yeah. It was very poor today. We'll leave it at that. As you say, experienced players do show their experience sometimes. And
you should watch Tipton Town Bets on a Saturday, lads. That's real experience. That is, boys.
Really experienced.
We get the Zimmer frames out, and we fall down just because we got nothing left. It's like cold sweat,
Yeah, I might have to turn up and have a watch one day. Over to you then, Stewie. Sofiane Amrabat.
Yeah, I was really disappointed with him today. Really disappointed. It's obvious what he'll bring to us when he settles down and the Duracell batteries start to evaporate with power, because he just is this energizer bunny type thing, and he plays football without any kind of compass, really, because he sees the pitch as his, and you can't do that. Not in the Premier League. You can maybe get away with it in other leagues and playing for Morocco and things like that, because you are almost the main man, but you can't kind of do that. So he just needs to calm his jets a little bit. I didn't think he had a great game today, but I'm going to give him a 6 because I thought he was slightly better than Casa. I think Freddie was absolutely right. 5's about right.
He doesn't think about the consequences, does he? I think
not yet.
He was either against Galatasaray or Palace prior to that. It was almost like he was just sort of looking for a yellow card. He was taking everyone out, not really thinking about it and not looking at the consequences, was it?
But he will do, and when he does, and when you get this relationship that cements, you start cementing a relationship with Casemiro, I think you'll see a much better kind of all-round player, in my humble opinion.
Yeah, I do agree. Marcus, Mason Mount.
Mason Mount, I'm going to give him a 6. I thought he was average today. Just interestingly, I think one thing about Mount is a lot of people kind of have been going quiet on Mason Mount, because remember the outrage when we signed him and then gave him the number 7 shirt, which, the number 7 shirt I think was a mistake, but the signing itself has been pretty decent. And I think he's been very important in helping our defensive shape and defending from the front. Like, people don't talk about that enough. I think back to the Spurs game and the Wolves game. At that point, even though it was only 2 games into the league, we were one of the highest, we had one of the highest percentages of winning the ball in the opposition half. And then as soon as he got out of the team, that number dropped and plummeted. So that tells you everything you need to know. But for today, just average, just a 6. I like his attitude. I like his work rate, but we need to see a little bit more from him. And I feel like him wearing that 7 jersey is just going to distort my opinion of him, because I'm a football romantic sometimes, and I take that very seriously. But yeah, 6.
Yeah. Can't disagree with you. Let's move on to a bit of a tough one, isn't it, at the minute? Not been good all season, but I'll give it to you, Freddie. Bruno Fernandes.
I think he was just played out of position today. Again, I don't know why he's playing him right wing. He's just not good there. You're taking one of our best players and invalidating them. No, exactly. And yeah, it just doesn't work. So I'll give him a 5. I'm not sure if that's too harsh or not, but he was quite ineffective. But I've got a bit of sympathy because he was out of position. I know he sort of became or was moved more central second half, but he didn't have any influence today, unfortunately. But that equally, I think that's the consequence of the front line being quite static as well. So yeah, he's in a bit of a bad bit of form as well. But yeah, it's sort of in parallel to the rest of the squad. So I'll give him a 5. But yeah, I'm sure he'll pick it up. Now Hojlund's looking a lot better as well, but he's got to play centrally. Yeah. That's when you see the best out of Bruno.
Yeah. It reminds me of when Pogba used to play on the left under Oli. He had a few good games and people thought there was something there, but I think overall it just didn't work. That's what it feels like with Bruno at the moment. Like Ten Hag just doesn't want to drop him, but he also recognizes that he can't play him through the middle if he wants to play, the new golden boy in town, Mason Mount.
Do you think Anthony's going to come back in after the international break, straight into the first 11?
Yeah, I think he's trying to bring him in slowly, isn't he? Trying to weed his way back in. So I can imagine he will probably start. I'm not sure if he's sold on Pellistri. I really rate him. I think he's young and raw, and I think he will improve. But I'm not sure if he himself is too sold on him, and I think he's going to go with tried and tested. We've seen that for the last year and a half. Not going to change it, is he? Yeah, I think so. Is my opinion. Let's talk about don't normally do subs, but I will do today, as you've seen already. But Scott McTominay, and I'll give you that one, Stu. You've got a nice, pleasant one to talk about.
He was average though, wasn't he? I mean, look, let's be clear. He scored 2 really good goals, well taken. When we needed somebody to step up to the plate. But here's the problem with euphoria as an emotion. It's the most dangerous emotion on the planet because you think, wow, this is great. Oh, McTominay, you've got to play next week. You've got to play. We need to play you up front and all this blah 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 blah. Doesn't work like that in football. Now, if McTominay does that for 5 games, 6 games, 7 games in a row, hey, I'd completely change my opinion of him. Yeah, I'm not saying that he didn't have the impact because he's come on and he thought, fuck it, I'm just going to go out, I'm going to do what I want to do. And it's worked. It has. It's like Marcus said, there's no rhyme nor reason to it. There was no, it was almost like painting by numbers. Marcus was absolutely right. It was almost painted by numbers. I'm just going to give you a colour, please, here's the number. Go and see what you can do with it. And he rolled the dice and he hit 666, didn't he? And there's nothing wrong with that, and that's great. But that's not, like I say, euphoria is a dangerous emotion. So he's won us a game today. He's the match winner. Does he become man of the match? Not for me. Although, there are instances where you can come on for 5-10 minutes and make such a difference. You are man of the match, but not for me. I want to see him do that when he comes back from the international break. That's what I want to see do. And if he does that in the next 2 or 3 games, then hey, hands up, away we go. But I just thought his overall play, I thought was okay. But he did take particularly his first goal. I thought he took that brilliantly. Well, I have to say.
Yeah, very good.
I'm going to give him a 6.
My problem with McTominay is people are going to do the same thing they did with Fred, the same thing they do with Maguire, the same thing they do with a lot of Manchester United players, and say, oh, you see, people wanted him sold. And it's like, yeah, and what's your point? It's like, nothing's changed, because this is what Scott McTominay should be. If we've been using Scott McTominay like this whole time, I wouldn't mind him being at the club. He should be a squad player. He should be somebody who comes in moments and contributes at the end of the game when we need him. Preferably not under these circumstances. Preferably when we're 3-1 up away from home and we need to rest our players for the Champions League. We bring McTominay on for the last half an hour just to run and be an engine. This is what we should be using him for. But unfortunately, there will be an overcorrection and there will be revisionism, because it's been happening with Fred. He's been balling out. I believe it's at Besiktas or wherever he went.
Fenerbahce, wherever it is. Yeah,
Fenerbahce. Yeah, that's right. I don't know why I said Besiktas. He's been balling out at Fenerbahce, and credit to him. But I saw someone say we should have never sold him, and I was like, here we go again. Here we go. Where were you under the days when we were watching McFred every week?
Yeah. I'm sure they're all part of it. It is funny, isn't it? When you see
that. Is it the same? Is it the same with Maguire, McTominay? They're not first team players. They're squad players. People wanted them both gone in the summer to West Ham. They've come in recently. They're doing a job. Everything you're both saying is that you praise Maguire earlier. Do you share the same sentiments with McTominay out of interest?
The difference with Maguire and McTominay for me is we signed Maguire for 80 million. McTominay came to the academy. So for me personally, I don't view Maguire as a squad player. I think Maguire is good enough to start games elsewhere. I don't want him starting games at Manchester United, and I think he needs to move on for his own career, personally. With Scott McTominay, I never had the expectation of him being a first-team player to begin with, so I've always viewed McTominay as a squad player. With Maguire, it's different, because I don't want Maguire to now just stay here and become a squad player. I think, first of all, he's better than that, and second of all, I just think that was an investment that didn't work out, and if we keep him here, it's just like, well, I don't know. That wasn't a part of the original plan, and it just wouldn't sit well with me, because could we not upgrade? Could we not sign someone younger? Could we not, do something different? Evans, as an example, to me, he's a squad player. I don't view Evans as the same as Maguire, right? It's a weird one. But I do get if somebody had a different opinion. You could make the argument that Maguire should be a squad player anyways.
I think it's a good question you pose. What is the difference between Maguire and but you've got to look at performances over an 18-month period. I never judge just on a 10-minute performance. I look over an 18-month period, and people will point at the fact that Maguire was dross for 18 months. I don't think it was necessarily dross. I think there was mitigating circumstances to why he wasn't playing to his full potential, and De Gea was one of those. I could go into it. I've gone into it 1,000,001 times. Whereas for me, McTominay has always been vanilla. He's he would have 1 in 7 games that he would play at the elite level, but you can't have that. You've got to be able to play at the elite level. And Maguire's proved this time in Leicester how to play elite level football, and so that's how I would differentiate the two. I've got no problems with McTominay, but today. Everybody. It comes down to that fabled emotion of euphoria. For me, it's just not quite. He doesn't kind of stick for me. And actually, Marcus's point back, Fred is exactly that. What we were discussing. Oh, we should never let Fred go. Blah 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 blah. Well, really, come on, think about it properly. And I also look at it. How would I be comfortable? Who would make me more comfortable in a starting 11, and why would they make me more comfortable in a starting 11?
And McTominay isn't that, is he?
He's not quite there yet. But I like your question, Freddie, and I think it was a good. It's a valid question, mate. Yeah. Very valid question.
Yeah. Let's move on to. You always seem to get him. Marcus, namesake, but Marcus Rashford, please, buddy.
Oh yeah, you know, sometimes when a player's playing really badly, sometimes their recent performances can distort the truth. I don't think Rashford was terrible today. I think there was still a lot of issues in his game.
Yeah.
But I don't think he was terrible today. So I'm going to give him a 6 average. Don't think he should be starting, but who else are you going to play? You know what I mean? So it's weird with Rashford. I almost don't care about him. I can't remember when was the last time I tweeted about him or posted about him, because for me, people who are ranting and raving about Rashford, it's like, man, like, you need to chill. There's other areas in this team that are definitely bigger problems at the moment. You know, it would be a different story if we actually had someone out on the wing who, you know, didn't fall out with the manager and could have been starting, but we don't. So yeah.
Just one thing quickly also about McTominay. I forgot to mention this because on a separate rant. When you come out and you post-match interview and say it's one of your best achievements in football, that's just not good enough.
He didn't say that. He said that was one of my most favourite moments.
Okay, well, but you've been playing professional football for 10 years. I mean, you've got to then look back at your own career and kind of, you need to define that better. So you should be able to point at 4 or 5, you know, this long in his career, should be able to point at 4 or 5 moments where, but
this is why people love him.
Yeah, I get it. I get it. You know, that we all loved him after. Yeah, we all loved him after he popped one in against Leeds, didn't we?
A couple of goals. Ago, got one against City. Yeah, I mean, he's done a few. I guess he's in that moment. You know, when you're sort of, it must have been electric. Can you imagine how he probably felt? I can imagine it's straight after the game. He's just describing.
If he kicks on, you know, now's your chance to kick on. I mean, you know, the centre halves have got a chance to kick on because I'm guessing Varane's injured again. He wasn't in the squad, was he?
Yeah, he is injured. Yeah.
Yeah. We got Martinez isn't going to be back for 3 or 4 months. So Maguire, Lindelof, Evans, you've got to kick on because we're going to rely on you guys. Scott McTominay should be thinking that same way. I've come on, I've scored twice. I've now got to make sure the gaffer's not dropping me. I've got to get myself into that 11. Don't dwell on the past. Think about the future.
Yeah. And history would probably tell us that might not happen, but we'll see. Finally then, Freddie, Rasmus. We got to do Garnacho as well, but you for Rasmus, please, mate.
I'll give him a 6 today. I think it was a very tricky opponent. Like I mentioned, Ethan Pinnock, man of the match for both teams for me, despite some of these goals at the end. It was a very tricky job. Brentford, they play 5 at the back. Look, he's showing that he's the correct profile of striker that we've signed. I mean, he's got everything. He shows pace, he shows strength. He's, gets on the end of crosses. He hassles the defenders. He's always on the last man. He drops deep. So there's a lot of promise on him. It's good. He's getting minutes under his belt again. It's good to see him stay fit. On another day, could have got a goal or 2. But I'll give him a 6. It was very tricky today. I don't think he got the service he probably should get. But yeah, a 6 today.
He's a nuisance. I keep saying this every week. He really is a handful. And
I like him.
Declared. Yeah, I love him. I already declared my love for him weeks ago, but I feel like I'm getting further and further down that road as the weeks go on, and hopefully, if he can start getting service, get some more goals. Yeah, really, really good sign, I think, so far. Hopefully, that continues. Right, so Garnacho then, Stu, you can finish it off then, buddy, and then we'll wrap up.
I don't know, 6. By the way,
come on.
By the way, I'm getting pelters in the comments over McTominay. I'll just use one word: consistency. That's all I'm looking for. Consistency. If he consistently proves or consistently plays at a level where he should be at Manchester United, fair enough. He just doesn't do that. Garnacho, lively as always when he comes on, and he is. He's a live one when he comes on, and he makes a difference because he stretches defenders. And he got that ball in for Martial, who was offside twice, and if he hadn't touched it, maybe the goal might have stood. But I thought Garnacho was a 6. He was no more than a 6.
Can I just say on McTominay very quickly? I think we've played him out of position for a couple of years, and the whole team hasn't been consistent. I know there's no excuse for any individuals. Top players will perform despite the team, but he's not a youngster anymore, so he does need to step up. But I think he's been used quite wrongly. But I don't know what position he is in theory. He plays, he's played everywhere through the spine for Scotland, centre back, centre mid, and quite high. He scores a lot.
He's played as a 10, hasn't he, for Scotland? He's played as a 10. He's played as a 10 a couple of times, or exactly. In that kind of area.
Exactly. But look, he's a useful squad player. He's not a first starter for us, quality-wise. But he's been at the club since he was 5'7". He's a good guy. But yeah, he's not a first-team player. So I think the way we're using him, if this is how we're going to use him, if we don't sell him, is the right way. Consistency is the right word. He needs to turn up when and perform when it's required of him.
Can I also just add, like, all the people who say he hasn't been played in the right position, which is a fair point. If you're saying he should be playing as an 8 or as a 10, you can't seriously, with the straight face, tell me he should be starting ahead of Bruno or Mount or a lot of the other players we've had. Like, is that what people are saying? Because if you're saying he's playing out of position, it's like, well, that's the point, because he's not good enough to start in his natural position because there have been players who are better than him. Therefore, checkmate, argument over. He's not good enough to start for Manchester United. So I don't understand. I mean, I understand the point. I just don't think it's relevant to McTominay's skill level, because saying he's not playing in his preferred position doesn't change the fact that he's not good enough to start for Manchester United, in my opinion. At least if you want Manchester United to win trophies and be a big club, as far as I'm concerned. And also the point about him performing for Scotland, again, that's international football. Playing for Scotland is very different to playing for Manchester United in the Premier League. So there's just a lot of I think there's a miscommunication about what the issue is with Scott McTominay. I'm not saying he's a terrible player. I'm just saying, he's not as good as some of the options we have in that position, whether he's an 8 or a 10,
Agreed.
I think the point is, if you're looking at his career so far, as of today, you're absolutely right. He's nowhere. He's nothing on Bruno. He's nothing on Casemiro. I think pre-Casemiro, the whole McFred era, they were playing him wrongly, but equally we didn't have anyone else. Yeah. So it comes down to recruitment at the end of the day. He's as with everything, he's been shoehorned, as was our wide right players today, shoehorning and not in their best position. So he's a squad player. That's it.
But sometimes you've got to make the best of your chance. You've got to make the best of your chances. So when you're given that starting berth, you don't want to relinquish it. You want to grab it and grip it and not let it go. You want to squeeze the life out of it. And there are players, by the way, that aren't doing that at the moment in our first 11, that are playing, but they're not taking their chance on it. And that's complacency. Now, McTominay doesn't suffer with complacency issues because he's never had a run in the team to allow him to get complacent.
Yep.
What he needs to do is, when he steps over that line and he's given that chance, is absolutely smash it, game in, game out. And so he can go to Ten Hag.
Did you just knock something over, Stu?
No, he can go to Ten Hag and he can knock on his door, kick it in or whatever he wants, and say, look, I played 4 games on the spin. We've won 4 games. I've done this, and this, and you drop me Y, or you put in X, Y, and Z in place of me Y. That's what a real elite athlete does. So it's nothing to do with, whether I think we're not playing him in the right position, whether playing in the wrong position. It's nothing to do whether I don't think he's a good footballer. I see the benefits of him. I see what he brings to Manchester United, but it's up to him to stay in that team. This is what football's about. It doesn't matter whether you're playing under 8s football to over 50s football. If you get that chance and you want to keep playing, you take it. And he hasn't. He just hasn't. And you could argue he's been thrown in a team of underachievers, which maybe he has. But it's up to you then to be that shining light, for you to put your head above the parapet week in, week out. Look at Jude Bellingham at the minute. Just as an example, he's popped off to Real Madrid and he's carrying Real Madrid now. But by the way, he's playing alongside the crooner. He's playing alongside Luka Modric. He's playing alongside some well-established veteran footballers. And he said, stuff it. I'm going to go in. I'm going to make sure I'm the best player in there. McTominay's got it in his bones. He just, I don't know. Somebody tell me. You tell me, guys, because I don't know.
Well, we're going to end it there. I appreciate this conversation. It's been a wonderful conversation, but we have run over. As always, guys, really appreciate you coming along. Thank you very, very much. And it's been a great, great conversation. Everyone in the comments have been fantastic as well. Please come back next time. And if you haven't already, make sure you like and subscribe. We can have a good weekend now for the first time in a while. And I like that. And as I said, we've got a couple of games, obviously, we're going to be firmly interested in tomorrow. Until then, we will see you next time.